himself over to the South African Police Services. We have also learned that he was taken to escort at the correctional facility, and there have been reports that they were waiting until around 2 a.m. this morning, waiting for President Zuma to arrive, or former President Zuma to arrive at the correctional facility. Now, one organization, Defend Our Democracy, have welcomed reports of the Zuma handover to law enforcement. And we joined on the line this morning by Andrew Iksan Gasnola. Andrew, welcome to the show. Great having you with us, and thank you for your time.
Morning to you and salam to your listeners as well.
Right, Andrew, I see the press statement that has been issued by Defend Our Democracy welcoming reports that the former President Jacob Zuma will be handing himself over at the Correctional Service Facility. And looking at this report or this press release at this point in time, can we confirm that he has handed himself over?
Yeah, so we've obviously overnight, late last night around midnight and then into the early hours of this morning, we've had confirmation both from the Jacob Zuma Foundation confirming that, the South African Police Services, as well Correctional Services. And the Justice Minister, Lamola, will actually be addressing the press later today around the process, around how, just generally how correctional incarceration processes work. So the former president is, in fact, has abided by the Constitutional Court decision, and the police have also upheld their obligation to make sure that he was committed into the system by end of day yesterday, which has happened.
Yes. Now, obviously, there were a lot of concerns, Andrew, since the Constitutional Court judgment, and we've seen so much happen in the last few days, and the country at that point in time, there was a lot of nervousness as far as what would happen and, where we would ultimately end with this entire saga. But it does appear as if, you've welcomed this move, and more importantly, looking at it, from a rule of law perspective, and also in terms of upholding the constitution of the country.
No, I think exactly that, right? I think for Defend Our Democracy, the campaign has always been committed to the idea that we are all equal before the law, and that's a fundamental principle of our democracy. Every citizen must be treated fairly and equally, and the laws of our country must be upheld, particularly when the Constitutional Court has made a majority decision, has issued an order. There are obligations that need to be followed. Whether that court order comes from the High Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, your magistrates' courts, your small claims courts, it goes to the fundamental heart of how we function as a society and the respect for the rule of law. And so we definitely welcome the fact that, the nervousness that we all felt and the trepidation, there is a sigh of relief that our democracy and the rule of law held firm, regardless of who the individual was, regardless of how powerful, how influential, how important they may be, the rule of law was fulfilled. And I think that's an important reminder for all of us, from a civic perspective, but also as citizens, to know that the law will always be, implemented. It will always be, will all be treated equally and fairly in the law, and that our constitutional rights cannot just be kind of run over just because you're important or you believe you're powerful.
Yes. Now, obviously, with South Africa and this being a landmark decision that was taken by the Constitutional Court, and also at the same time, when one looks at this is unprecedented in South Africa's history, where we've seen now a former president, Andrew, being sent to prison.
Yeah, look, and I think, the process that led up to the Constitutional Court wasn't accidental. I mean, I think the amount of opportunities the former president was given to make representations in the court processes, as well as actually appear at the State Capture Commission, is numerous, more than 6 occasions. And the election not to participate and not to be held accountable, I think for South Africans, as we reflect on what has happened, we have seen accountability. And if you opt not to be accountable and you choose to avoid accountability, there are consequences. And those consequences have been enforced by the Constitutional Court, and there are results. So it's not an empty threat. It's not a empty promise. And I think it's a reminder to all our politicians across the country that if you do not serve the interest of the people and you refuse to be held accountable and you avoid responsibility, there are serious consequences. And I think, we should as citizens be reassured that, our democracy was able to defend itself from very powerful and influential individuals.
Yes. Now, obviously, we are looking forward to the press conference by the Minister of Justice. But looking at what this has actually done is it has set some sort of precedent for people in high positions, whether they are politicians or not, that at the end of the day you cannot escape the law. And also at the same time, irrespective of how powerful you are, what your support base is. And we've learned that some experts are saying that Jacob Zuma's decision to hand himself over was aimed at avoiding bloodshed and instability in the country. And this is something that we need to keep uppermost in our mind, Andrew, in terms of the power that sometimes these people in high positions actually wield, and their support base that possibly could be very inflammatory and even holding the country and its people to ransom.
No, exactly right. We saw some of that happen over the weekend in Canada, where thousands reports to mobilize ability. The rhetoric is quite inflammatory. They spoke about being in a battle against other people, and I think that is dangerous.
Andrew, can you just move around slightly? We are losing you a bit.
How is it any better?
Yes, much better, much better.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, no, so I think, what we've seen is the inflammatory rhetoric and conduct obviously unfolded over the weekend, the past weekend, and obviously last night as well. But I think, these theatrics and this machinery that kind of mobilizes around agitation, it's a lot of noise. And I think what we've seen is Jacob Zuma had no choice but to surrender himself. If he failed to do so, with the motorcade that left the residence around 11:20 last night, the South African police services would have done and taken him in. So there was no choice for him. So, I think the election that he made was not a willful election. I mean, up until literally 11:20, we had members of the Jacob Zuma family as well as his foundation, being adamant about how they're not going to surrender. And so I think the choices for the former president were very slim. There was, regardless of his own choice or the choices of others, he was going to be taken into custody. And that was because the Constitutional Court order was binding and there was no choice but to fulfill it. And I think that's the important thing. And I think, the rhetoric is dangerous and we must be cautious around it, because even journalists were sort of manhandled over the weekend trying to report on what was happening outside in Kandla. And I think
Andrew, I'm sorry to stop you, Andrew. In fact, I see we've got Carl Niehaus on the line with us. So just quickly, I want to take Carl Niehaus. I know he's got limited time. Carl, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Yes, Carl, in fact, last night when I did the show, I know you were on your way to Nkandla, and, this morning we were greeted with the news that the former president has handed himself over. What do we know, what transpired last night?
Well, first of all, my apologies last night. You were trying to get me onto a discussion which wasn't possible because of poor connectivity. So my apologies to your listeners because of that. With regards to the situation that unfolded itself at Nkandla, I disagree with Andrew that President Zuma had no choice. He had a choice to decide to resist and not to go. But President Zuma is someone who is very concerned about our country. He doesn't want to see divisions. He definitely doesn't want to see violence and bloodshed. And all of those issues informed his decision to finally, after 11 o'clock last night, go to a prison facility. But that does not mean that this is a just situation. It does not mean that President Zuma's rights have not been fundamentally compromised and undermined by the Constitutional Court and also by the manner in which his objection to the chairpersonship of Mr. Justice Zondo over the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture has been dealt with. All of those issues stand, and they will still be addressed further, both inside court on Monday, on the 12th, but most definitely, President Zuma's supporters, which counts in the millions of people in South Africa, will continue to raise our objection to his imprisonment and also everything else that surrounded this very unseemly, vicious attack on him, the targeting of himself, and the manner in which we now see the legal system being weaponized for political and factional purposes.
Yes. Now, obviously, we're not going to hear the end of this. There's still a lot that will obviously happen over the next few days, Carl. But we are also waiting this morning for the Minister of Justice to hold this press conference and to issue an official statement on behalf of the government.
I don't know what the Minister of Justice is going to say. I presume that he will try to say that this was a victory for the rule of law. It wasn't. In fact, it's the failure of the rule of law that we saw in the last while. We've seen how President Zuma's rights have been undermined. And I can assure you, and I'm not talking here just simply as an individual, that the opposition to what has happened now will become stronger and stronger. It is not just going to be, as Andrew tried to say, rhetoric. It is a real deep concern and outrage at what has been done. And this is not going to dissipate. It's not going to disappear. And those who have the illusion and fool themselves to think that it will find out in the coming days, weeks, and months that this event of last night and the anger and the pain that we felt when we saw President Zuma having to go into prison will reach every corner of this country. And there will be no dissipating of this anger. And we will not rest until we have our constitutional democracy properly re-established and that we have a society where we do not have a dictatorship of the judiciary and where factional political reasons does not inform the manner in which the law is executed, and that Lady Justice will truly be blind. Lady Justice isn't blind now. It is selective. The blindfold has shifted from her eyes. Some people are targeted, others are not. The very legitimate fight against corruption is now being used for factional political purposes to target certain people and leave other people off the hook. We are not going to rest until this is going to change.
Carl, just very quickly, as far as the mood is concerned, what was the mood like when the president was taken away? And did you have the opportunity to see him before he had left?
Yes, I saw him last night at his residence in Kandla, together with a small group of comrades, and his family were there. It's obviously a painful and emotional experience. But at the same time, President Zuma, as always, was strong, upbeat, clear about his purpose. And instead of us giving him courage, he was encouraging us. And when I shook his hand, he said to me, "Be strong, my brother." That is how I know the man, Jacob Zuma. And that is the man that I have known for the last 35 years. A person who's dedicated his life to the liberation struggle and who at the advanced age of 79 is not moving away from that commitment and is continuing to articulate that commitment in the strongest possible terms. He was clear that his constitutional rights have been undermined. He was clear that he's not just fighting for himself in resisting that from happening, but he's fighting for every citizen whose rights can be undermined by this kind of growing dictatorship that we are experiencing now. He was clear that he dedicated his life for the establishment of this democracy and the adoption of our constitution. And he was not going to waver in that. Nor will we, I can assure you. As I'm talking to you today, I'm talking with more commitment and more certainty that I will oppose the injustices what is playing out in front of our eyes now than ever before.
Well, Carl, thank you very much coming on at short notice for talking to us this morning and providing us with that update. We wish you all the best. And also to Andrew Gasnola, we thank you for your time. Please take care.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much.
The time is just gone 9:36 a.m. That was the update on former President Jacob Zuma deciding to comply with the incarceration order and handing himself over to the Correctional Services Facility in Escort. When we come back, we'll be joined by Abdul Alim Hamza. We're talking Islamic Relief South Africa. We're talking about the Cape Town Qurbani project.
These days, I'm more health conscious than ever. So tonight, it's stir fry for dinner, cooked in healthy Helios pure sunflower cooking oil. Helios is pure sunflower goodness, packed with omega-6. That's good for your heart. And is approved as part of the Heart and Stroke Foundation eating plan. Dinner's ready! Helios, pure sunflower cooking oil. A healthy family is a happy one.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have been perfect